Perfect. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Cornerstone Insights. This is the first episode of our series of videos that discuss any issues related to compliance and sales. Joining me today is, and I have the privilege, you're the first of my guests, Chuck.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Charles Christofilis. So before the introduction, I would like to kind of put the framework around it. In today's episode, the topic is collaboration between compliance and sales team. And the reason why I have Chuck on as a guest today is because he brings a great deal of experience, and he'll discuss his experience in a moment. We will focus today on this collaboration between compliance and sales team. Why? Because too often these groups are seen really as pulling the opposite directions. They're very siloed. However, it is both our experience, and I'm sure the experience of many others that will look at the video, that when these two teams are aligned, firms really accelerate the pipeline and minimize the risk. So, Chuck, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've been in primarily compliance roles. I've been general counsel, chief compliance officer, financial operations principal for financial entities for over 26 years. And now I make a living of sorts as a consultant in the space. And let's see, most of my time was on the IA side, but I'm also very heavily involved now with alternative trading systems. I had a foray into a pivot into crypto for a while, last 6 years or so, and tried to get that to work with the broker dealer. But yeah, that's the gist of it.
And boatloads of examples and stories that you can probably share with all of us today, and I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get into the real discussions here taking place. So let's start with the elephant in the room at the end of the day. So sales and compliance are often seen as being siloed as being at odds. My question is, why do you think, Chuck, that this is the perception that exists between these two teams?
Yeah, well, if it's not structured right, the reality is that compliance does slow things down. It's friction in the sales process as far as the sales people are concerned, right? And for salespeople, they view it as this is going to slow me down. This is going to prevent me from achieving my sales goals, right? Whether you're an investment advisor rep or a registered rep and a broker dealer, it's just friction in the process. It's viewed as the department of no, or the business prevention team. Oftentimes, it doesn't have to be that way, but that's often how it's viewed, unfortunately.
Yes, and I remember when you and I touched on this in the past, you made it at one point, which was offense versus defense. Compliance equal cost, but in reality makes business life all around more efficient and more effective. Do you still believe that?
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about the user experience. I mean, look, the business people, the investment advisor reps, the registered reps, the regulators, the compliance people, the legal departments, we all want the same thing. We all want to have this symbiotic relationship where we're helping people achieve their financial goals.
Wonderful. What happens, and I'm sure you have stories to share, what happens when communication between compliance and sales teams breaks down? More importantly, what is the impact, the result of that?
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, the impact, of course, is, not only enforcement actions and fees and fines, but it's just you cannot have a thriving financial services firm when you have that friction unnecessarily.
Right,
So
right.
the salespeople, if they don't have that collaborative relationship, that understanding of compliance, and that solid working relationship with compliance, there's no way that they can be confident in what they're selling. And if it's an
Right.
adversarial relationship, the compliance people, because their compensation is usually structured as such that very little upside for them and huge risk, they're going to be more risk averse, and they're not going to try to think in terms of solutions.
Yes,
So it's
totally
very
agree.
destructive if you don't have that. If compliance doesn't have a seat at the table, and if the business people and the salespeople aren't respectful of and give compliance, they're what they need to get the job done.
Perfect. Yes, totally in agreement with that. On the flip side, when sales and compliance do work together, I'm sure you have stories to tell. I know I have,
Yeah.
but I want to give you the opportunity to share. What importantly, what is the difference? What happens, the opposite end of the worst case scenario we just talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, 80-90% of it, developing any product or service is planning and then execution. So operation, everything runs smoothly. And I can think of one example where just the business people, the investment advisor rep in particular, had this couple that for many years they were meeting, consistently and very methodically, going through the investment policy statement, covering their investment objectives and whatnot. And later the couple passed away and their kids threatened to sue. And the investment advisor rep that I was working with, the plaintiff's attorney, to his credit, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to sue you. Your firm, lost my client's inheritance." And it turned out that the parents spent their kids' inheritance and were fully on board with bankers' boxes full of investment policy statements and quarterly portfolio reviews with all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. So that
Yeah.
was that. I mean, that's one good example. But kind of with regulators, with examinations, or with civil litigation, if you're explaining, you're losing. So if you have everything, that process working the way it's supposed to, it just gives everyone that level of assurance that
Yes.
everything's running smoothly. Yeah.
And then one of the things that you pointed out in our previous discussions was that the client issues and concerns will be handled quicker and quickly if you have that cooperation, just like you described. And therefore, it ties into a higher profitability at the end of the day from the business perspective and the business growth.
Exactly. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think at a very fundamental level, everyone has to, well, three things. Everyone has to understand that they're in sales, right? Compliance people are selling compliance. You're salespeople, whether you like it or not, right?
yep, yep,
And the salespeople, conversely, need to step into the shoes of compliance and understand, if they don't want that friction there, what the issues, the concerns are to make that sales process run smoothly.
right,
So
right.
the regulators, the business owners, the investment advisor reps and registered reps, we all want the same thing. We all want investor protection, efficient capital markets, and more important than anything else is the goal is to have the clients or customers achieve their financial goals.
Absolutely. And there are lessons learned if you have that kind of cooperation. I've seen that happen as a sales professional in my past life, and you've seen happen as a compliance professional, whereby if you also have that collaboration between compliance teams and sales teams, when they're talking to a client, they're launching a new product or whatever the case may be, when compliance is in alongside the sales team and vice versa, that cooperation will result also in less backtracking, in less, more. The advisors will gain even more credibility, potentially fewer revisions, and at the end of the day, the advisors hopefully will not have to walk back their promises that they've done. What do you think?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the compliance people need to be involved and understand the sales process and what the world looks like on a day-to-day basis for the registered reps or investment advisor reps.
Right, right,
Conversely, the salespeople need to go out of their way to have a certain cadence, whether it's, in the weekly sales calls or monthly meetings, to have that interaction and that familiarity with the compliance team.
right, exactly. So let's expand. We already touched on how the practical side of it and the practical collaboration. So let's move the conversation on what are your recommendations, the steps that the firms can take to build that stronger collaboration between sales and compliance? And you touched on some of those, but you
Sure.
as a professional compliance with many years of experience, in addition
Right.
to the fact that now you are a compliance consultant, you are that extra level that the clients can do, what would you recommend to your clients today?
Yeah, first and foremost, that the salespeople, when when interacting with compliance, that they use their sales and marketing skills and wisdom to connect with people and to view the world from the shoes of the compliance professional. Secondly, both sides, everyone has to work together as a team, so you need people involved in lifelong learning to understand the compliance people shouldn't just be complacent and just check the box and stay in their lane, but need to understand where the industry is going, the new products, the new services, the new technologies. AI is a good example, right? So lifelong learning, both not only for the investment advisor reps, but also for the compliance team. And then, finally, and I've said this a couple times already, everyone's in sales, so the compliance people have to understand that they are selling compliance in the same way that the investment advisor reps, the registered reps are selling, securities aren't bought, they're sold, right? And so it's very unnerving for someone to go to a financial firm in order to trust them with their money, to trust them with their financial goals. In the same vein, the salespeople and the compliance people have to work together to achieve their mutual goals. And the
Yes.
compliance people are in sales, they're selling compliance, and the salespeople have to interact with and use compliance as part of that sales process.
Absolutely true, because everybody's focused on uh, really establishing and gaining that trust from the client's perspective, and vice versa, right? You have to
Right.
have that. And would you agree that, or what are your thoughts, I should rather ask, about training? Clearly, that to me is going to be a crucial component of solidifying and maintaining that collaboration between compliance and sales teams. What are your thoughts on that? And how could that be made more meaningful?
Right. Yeah. It can't just be the kind of, regulatory element or firm element required training, right? It has to be more consistent and pervasive as the firm develops new processes, as the firm develops new products and services. The rules are changing every day. And so, the salespeople, the compliance team, they all should have a weekly, whether the compliance people are involved in a weekly sales meeting or have some more consistent cadence of monthly compliance meetings where there's more interaction and training. Lifelong learning is really key in this business because we all make a living selling um, superior knowledge and understanding of investments in the markets.
I
And if you
totally
don't
agree.
have that, I'm sorry to go on, but if
No,
you
no,
don't
please.
have that, you can't really have a financial institution with long-term success because
Right.
the reputational risk, never mind civil litigation, never mind arbitrations or regulatory fees and fines and enforcement actions, it's really the reputation of the firm that drives the business growth from my experience. And the reputational risk is not to be underestimated. And you cannot have a firm that avoids reputational risk unless you have the business people, the leadership team, and the compliance team, and all the salespeople working together in that regard.
100%. I totally agree with you. There is no price that you can attach to a firm's reputation and the severe consequences from the regulatory perspective, from a client's perspective, from investors' perspective. We know very well today with the many merger and acquisitions that are taking place in this space. I know I've noticed, and I know you have noticed too. What's happening is that the investors, they want to invest in an RIA, for example, ready to take the company to the next level. Well, they want to look under the hood. And
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
take a real serious look at the company from the receptionist all the way to the senior executive leaders. So it has to be a consistent culture of collaboration, of compliance, of leadership across the board. The message has to be loud and clear and reinforced. So, which brings me to the next question that I have. Speaking of leadership, in your experience as a compliance professional and now a compliance consultant, what would you recommend a client when you be talking maybe to the sales leadership working and how they can work with compliance more effectively and efficiently? What would you recommend?
Just to give, compliance a seat at the table. And it's, it depends on the size of the organization, but it's not really just tone from the top. You can have tone from the top that's excellent, but in larger or even medium-sized organizations, it's more tone at the middle.
Yeah.
And, to give what the proverbial saying, the regulators, to give compliance a seat at the table, to make sure they're involved and intertwined enough in either middle management or senior management to make a difference.
Yes, yes. And I also would like to add, being a sales professional myself and having worked with compliance my entire professional life, I love compliance. I'm a compliance nerd. That's how defined. But when I would speak to my clients, and they were primarily chief compliance officers and senior leadership, I would say, I'm your compliance therapist. Dump on me. Let's work together and figure out how we can fix and address the pain points that you're going through right now. It is for your benefit. And along the same line, along the same vein, I would think that empathy, and you and I talked about this, empathy
Yeah.
plays a great role because, and I want to give you an opportunity to elaborate on that because this idea actually came also from you. How do you view the role that empathy plays from the sales leadership and also from the sales team, obviously?
Yeah, it's all about emotional intelligence and empathy. It's not just that you view this as a zero-sum game, as an adversarial relationship. The compliance people, if you are very enamored with compliance, the compliance people cannot have a thriving career, have any longevity at any company if they have an adversarial relationship with
Yeah.
the leadership team. So
Yep.
yeah, it all has to be viewed from the standpoint of, how can we help each other and work as a team, not just that compliance is over there, compliance is the business prevention team, and something to be dealt with like a necessary evil. Needs to
Right.
be a pervasive part of the process. And from the customer's perspective, you need to have a really good, and now this is very much in vogue, we're going from this relationship-based world to a transactional based world, but that's very important for the customer experience.
Yep.
Whether it creates friction even in an online platform,
Right.
that
Right.
compliance has to be pervasive and it has to be interwoven in the process.
I agree. And moving, on the opposite direction, what would you say to your peers, compliance leaders? What would you add to so that they can build a stronger trust with the sales team? What could they do at their end?
Of course, again, the empathy thing, put yourself in their shoes, right? Because it's, if you have a salesperson that has certain goals to meet and they don't want, or even the senior leadership team developing a new product or service, they don't want to be blindsided in the last minute that a client, walks away or a product can't be launched because compliance throws a monkey wrench in the works at
Right.
the last minute.
Right.
So there needs to be a certain rapport, a certain relationship between compliance and business or things.
And you and I talked about this, so I want to bring it up because I think those were excellent points that you made in our past conversations. The way you do that is that you really have to get to know the salespeople, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What their goals are and what they're facing every day, and what their concerns are so that
Yeah.
you can work
100%.
together, that you can work this. So, and it ties into the empathy factor.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
end of the day,
Sit in
we're
on
human.
calls with the
Yep.
salespeople and go on the road with salespeople. Yeah, absolutely. Or investment advisor registered reps, whatever it is. It's not so much a unique thing in the larger institutional world. Of course, any
Yeah.
large
Yeah.
institutional pension fund, you're going to have the legal and compliance people in that process, but very, relatively unheard of in more retail and smaller wealth management
Right.
firms.
Right. Well, this has been um, tremendously helpful. I want to thank you for joining us today again, joining me. I'm one of many at this point. I appreciate your feedback. This has been very helpful. Ultimately, my personal goal is to allow other compliance professionals, other salespeople in this industry, in this niche, to really start thinking about and peeling off some of the potential misconceptions that may take place. And before we close this recording, before we close this video, Chuck, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do for your clients? What services do you offer for your clients?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. So
My pleasure.
primarily, I'm working as a fractional general counsel and chief compliance officer and financial operations principal. I can step in whether, it's someone going on maternity leave or there's a gap to fill, or for startups as a fractional CCO. I help develop a comprehensive risk-based compliance program, AML program, written supervisory procedures, business continuity, cybersecurity, all of that. So
That's
anytime I
wonderful.
can be of assistance, just reach out to me and I'd be glad to help.
There, and I encourage that. I've known Chuck for many years, and the information you can see on the screen. So Chuck, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your insight. If you have more ideas, I'd love to get you back on again
Okay,
because this
great.
has been awesome.
Mhm.
And I shall speak to you very soon. And thank you everybody for watching the video.
Okay, thank you.